Oh, the first one. What is the title? Demystifying mental illness. Somebody added stop stigma. I'm so grateful because once I wrote a post on WorldPulse saying demystify and destigmatize, and somebody said it was hard to go through the two words. So anyway, so demystify means you want to make it easy to understand. You don't want to make it look like it's some taboo thing and stuff like that. And then destigmatizes, you don't want to be ashamed of it and you don't want people to shame you for it. Very simple language. So there I am. I am not that PTSD diagnosis. I myself live with a mental illness called post-traumatic stress disorder. And yes, it's a mental illness. You can go from mild to moderate to severe. And that is it. I also lost a brother in 2014 to, he had several diagnoses. So, well, he was mentally ill for a long time. So mental illness is something that has impacted me and impacted my family. I also have a cousin who is mentally ill. So I'm interested in raising awareness and sensitizing and yes, advocating for better laws and for better treatment of people living with a mental illness. And I've been an ambassador for 6 months and I got my certificate. I wanted to show that off. Why? Because I want people to know that even with a mental illness, you can do a lot of things. When we think mental illness, maybe we think only of people who are chained, people who are bedridden. No, I'm a high functioning person and I'm actually the World Regional Representative for Africa of the Global Mental Health Care Network and also the country executive for Cameroon. I'm a lawyer, psychotherapist, all of that. That's a flyer I did for the Global Mental Health Care Network. So mental illness in many communities and cultures is viewed as a frightening or a strange condition. I mean, if all of us stop now and think for 1 minute growing up or even right now, people we know who have a mental illness or who have an illness we cannot explain, and maybe think about how we treat them. Uh, Maybe it's because it's mysterious. People are saying all sorts of things. In Africa, we say it's witchcraft, it's your village people who have done something to you. But the truth is that anybody can have a mental illness or a mental disorder. I mean, right now, the crisis in Cameroon is making people have a psychotic break. People are scared, people are traumatized, people are terrorized. Before you know it, you've lost touch with reality. That's why a mental illness or disorder is a psychological or behavioral pattern that occurs in an individual and is thought to cause distress or disability to carry out their day-to-day activity. And when they say you're not behaving normally, sometimes before then people used to use this term, you're behaving like a fool. So it's like, I don't know what it means by you're behaving like a fool, but those were very denigrating terms back then. I don't hear a lot of that these days. So I'm happy that some of those terms are taken away. When you say somebody is mad, I think that's so stigmatizing. Somebody is distressed, somebody is suffering. Just like you can have cancer and you feel so bad about yourself, you feel like you just want to die, you can't take it. That is your mind, which is now affected. So when I'm sick or when I'm in a bad mood, I have mood swings. I say I don't control what I'm saying. I'm just so in a state. But after that, I get over it. So the first training I did was on mental health awareness and mental health care. So maybe we could go back to that later on. But now I'm just trying to make mental illness more easily understandable so that when we live here today, when we see somebody who is struggling, we have all put those beautiful words in the treasure box. Let's remember them and think about them differently and relate with them differently. And why not even accept them and say a prayer for them? So that's a basic graph for classification of mental disorders. You have the common mental disorders like depression, anxiety, even excess use of alcohol that makes you lose touch with reality. You start behaving out of control. Yes, severe mental disorders like psychotic episodes, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder. And then you have generalized anxiety. A lot of us are anxious nowadays, the pandemic, the crisis, the NSAS, the all of those things, right? The only difference is you have to be diagnosed, by psychiatrists or psychologists. But in Africa, people don't really go to see those specialists. So people might not be diagnosed like officially, but they are going through stuff, and that is affecting their day-to-day existence. You have phobias where you are so scared of everything. You have panic disorders. You have obsessive compulsive disorder. People are obsessed about something and doing the same thing over and over. Yet there are more than 200 classified forms of mental illness. So we might think we know it all, or no, it can only be this or it can only be that. No, there's so many, more than 200. uh, some of the more common ones are depression, bipolar disorder, dementia, schizophrenia, and anxiety disorders. Now, post-traumatic stress disorder, which is what I have, is a serious mental condition that some people develop after a shocking, terrifying, or dangerous event. Coming back to the crisis in Cameroon, in Nigeria, all over the world, South Africa, Congo, a lot of people are going to develop PTSD because of the trauma. So it is not something that you deliberately go and look for. Trauma is the reaction to an event that was shocking and terrifying. You may not have been the one who caused it, but we all have different makeups. And so if you break a glass in this room, the way I will react might be different from the way another person will react. So they said the other day a tire exploded and people were so scared. Some people stayed calm. So people react differently. Someone can suffer from a mental illness when there are ongoing signs and symptoms of the stress and the trauma and all of that affect their ability to function. So, like maybe I can't go to work again. I don't feel like taking a bath. I stay only in bed. I don't open the windows. I don't talk to people again. All of that, yes. And maybe even I become sometimes violent, but it's not all violent people who are mentally ill, and it's not all mentally ill people who are violent. That is why signs and symptoms, they start from the emotions, then the thoughts, and then the behavior. That's why you see some people who are just talking, they're ill. There are people who are fighting. There are people who are breaking things up, stuff like that. And there are people who are just staying in their corner, sad and locked up and just saying, oh, the world is a bad place and stuff like that. Or they're saying things which don't really make sense at that time. They're so scared of everything. Their mood swings. They withdraw from friends, and they're always tired, and they can't cope with daily problems. They don't understand what you're saying, or they're constantly drinking, or they're using drugs, maybe to cope with whatever they're going through. And you have changes in eating habits, even sex drives, yeah, anger, hostility, or violence, suicidal thinking. I was once so sick that I picked up a knife to attempt suicide, kill myself in 2009. So I'm not just talking about things which are like, look at me, and then you think of somebody who has been through stuff. Okay, what limits the understanding of mental illness? The stigma. So stigma, people are so like, no, 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 no. I don't even want to hear anything. They are crazy. I don't want to see them near my child. In my country, back in the days, I don't know if people still do this. We do what they call investigate into the family. If you want to get married to somebody, they have to go and investigate into the family to see if there are people in that family who live with a mental illness, the people in that family. I don't know if mental illness can really contaminate someone, but that is that. So when I lost my brother, there was a lot of noise and everything. And coincidentally, it is that same year that I was diagnosed. And I said, I am not going to keep quiet. I am actually going to write a book about my brother's journey. And I'm going to talk about my own journey, and I'm going to make this my life mission so that people will not stigmatize me, because I'm not giving anybody the permission to stigmatize me. And people should stop stigmatizing other people. I mean, people, when they have cancer, nobody stigmatizes them. Everybody is sorry, full of compassion and everything. So why should we stigmatize people who have a mental illness? Uh, Mental illness is more often deemed a sign of weakness. Yeah, they say it's your fault. Yeah, especially if you were taking drugs or drinking and all of that. People say, oh, yes, you look for it. And so, well, you yourself, you start feeling embarrassed, you lock yourself more, and that is how the cycle continues. Many of us may have experienced sadness, anger, fears, worries, or stress in our moods. However, it is not a mental illness until we experience frequency of the debilitating mood. Um, when was that? Before I left this country in 2011, like 2009 was my worst year. 2008, 2009, 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010. But there's something, you can mask it when you're in public and you're all the smile and everything. But when you get back into your room, it is terrible. So it's only you who knows how debilitating whatever you are feeling inside you is. So mental illness is not the result of limited willpower. People say, oh, just get over it. Oh, you're not praying enough. Oh, you don't believe so much. You have to stay positive. It is not easy. And I know what I'm talking about. Okay. So it does not indicate whether you are a strong or a weak person, rich or poor person. I have seen people from all levels of life who have a mental illness. I think there are more celebrities who have even committed suicide, died by suicide, than I don't know. So it's like we have to stop thinking this is something we can just pray away, or we can just curse away, or we can just shame away, and stuff like that. So yeah, mental illness should be considered like any physical illness, which just has complex causes and which need professional treatment. So to demystify mental illness, let us consider a few common physical illnesses: hypertension, stroke, heart attack, even cancer, diabetes. They are medical conditions, but they also come with psychological disturbances. So those ones who are, I mean, people who are sick with all of these medical conditions or physical illnesses, of course, they suffer psychologically, and they can suffer to the point where they now are diagnosed with a mental illness. So yes, and this can be a cause of stress and poor choices. Uh, we don't have to judge anybody for all of that. And then, well, let me just talk briefly about the treatment for mental illness. We have the medical, the social, and the psychosocial. It's very important. Look, these three, if you are only giving medication, it's like if somebody has cancer and you just give them medicine, it is not going to help them as much as if you added the family care and maybe the counseling and all of that. So it's very important that we think about all of this, and that we know that people need to be given these opportunities. Unfortunate that in our, I don't know about other countries, but in Cameroon, we don't have adequate mental health services. And at least the pandemic has made it much more glaring that we really need to up our services for mental health. We don't even have a mental health policy in my country. We have like 5 public psychiatrists in this whole country. Uh, I mean, the statistics are not so good, but we are supposed to help one another, as a family and even as friends, right? As a community, like on WorldPulse. When I talk about my illness and I keep writing, it's because I want people to keep hearing about it, and then to gradually start changing their perception and saying, oh, well, but yeah, Marie is Marie and Marie lives with PTSD, but that does not define Marie. Okay, so that is why I studied psychology too, and that is why I got my cognitive behavioral therapy certification in 2017. And so I'm actually a psychotherapist too. Yes, a doctor can be sick, but the doctor can do a very good job. I actually think that it makes me understand people better. So in conclusion, most people who live with serious mental illnesses can significantly reduce the impact of their illness and find a satisfying measure of achievement and independence through proper care and treatment. And they can have a relapse, but that doesn't mean that they are worthless. Let's not do that again. Okay, so just remember that they are still your son, daughter, brother, sister, or friend who can be smart, funny, and hardworking, but is dealing with an illness which needs to be treated and managed. Okay, well, thank you so much for your kind attention. When women connect, we create solutions that heal the world. Let's go back into our communities and maybe start also raising awareness, telling people no. Okay, well, thank you so much, everybody.